Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, welcome to the weekly comic book review here on Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and this is the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. And sorry for the delay this week, but my shipment got delayed at the shop because of some wintry weather going on in the region, in the area, so couldn't be done, couldn't be helped. Got the comic books a day late, so the comic book review, of course, is a day late. But let's get right into it with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Justice League Annual #1. Now, there are some fine comic books out there today. Some really good comic books that are game-changing moments in their own stories. But none bigger, none more ambitious, none more explosive, none more impactful than what happens in Justice League Annual #1. If you've been following what Scott Snyder, the architect of this Justice League book, has been devising and plotting and scheming, it's just been a glorious feeling and sensation every issue to have all these little tidbits of mysteries revealed and new questions, right? And this issue right here is a big explosion of exposition goodness. It does it so well. It's a story that is plotted by Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV. It is scripted by James Tynion. He did all the dialogue. He handles the exposition perfectly. This explains so much about the totality, about Perpetua, about all this stuff. We've been getting a lot of explanations here in the recent issues of Justice League. This goes even further, and it really sets up some great giant moments, big moments in DC cosmology and mythology. Absolutely fantastic stuff. I loved it so much. Snyder, Tynion, they do a great job. They are also joined by Daniel Sampere, I think, or Sampiri is his name, the penciler on this book. Fantastic, big, epic stuff. The basic gist of the story is at the end of Metal and during the whole No Justice story, right? So the source wall is broken, it's damaged, it's leaking through these dark forces, all this stuff. The Omega Titans come in that No Justice series. This explains everything about the source wall. It explains everything about the Omega Titans. It all makes sense, it all fits, and it just gets ramped up to a crazy intensity that just, I am so excited for what's coming at DC Comics and what Scott Snyder and company are going to be doing with the Justice League. That's why it's the pick of the week. This reawakens the young fan kid inside of me. It feels so fun. It's epically done. It's huge. It's explosive, and it's a story that can almost only be told in comic books. Great art, great big explosive use of these characters, and just fantastic stuff all throughout. And I've been raving about it for a minute, so let's move right on through. Heroes in Crisis #5 is out this week. This book's starting to feel a little thin for me. It feels like there's just not enough content per issue. Now, we've been saying this pretty much the whole time. And I trust Tom King. I think Tom King is a good writer, and I'm down to see how this is all going to unfold. And there are nice little new elements that are introduced in here. Albeit, though, I'll just say that throughout most of this issue, I found myself kind of bored, saying, let's get to the point, let's get to the next stage, let's move this story forward. It's 5 issues in after 9. We are now past the halfway point officially, and I'm still just feeling like the story doesn't have enough meat on its bones. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. It's got some decent artwork, it's got some really nice touching little soft moments with certain characters, and it does set up some interesting little twists in this issue, but ultimately throughout the issue I'm like, it's kind of boring, kind of dull, not really grabbing me. It doesn't really entice me. I don't know. I really am anxious to see how this is all going to pan out, but right now I'm just feeling that it's a little subpar for typical Tom King, in my opinion. Moving right along. Action Comics 1007. It's one of the best issues of Action Comics yet, and it surprises me because it starts off with Jimmy Olsen. But it's really, really good. Steve Epting comes in on the artwork. Steve Epting on a Superman book in the 90s, that would have made sense, right? You think about it now, his style is very noirish. It's very it's very grounded. Man, it's Superman, but this is the grounded Superman book, if there is such a thing, right? This book has been really fun, really cool. Bendis, the writer, has been laying out all these cool little mysteries about like this criminal organization that's been operating in Metropolis all these years underneath Superman's notice, stuff like that. But this issue gets another ground to take, a great conversation with Lois Lane and her father, Samuel Lane. Some really cool Superman moments, and Epting's artwork is so clean, so elegant, so perfect, and Superman still feels like this giant mythical creature, and it works so well. And since I did mention a little bit of the art, I'll show you a little bit of the art. But a really cool mystery starts becoming a little bit more clear. Bendis says he's building up to something with Leviathan rising here. It starts here. Ultimately, you're going to feel like not too much happened in this issue, but a lot of character nuances happened in it, and some big revelations kind of happened into it, albeit very small feeling at the time. But in typical Bendis fashion, it's a good start to a new story that promises some really exciting things to happen. But the artwork on here really shined for me, and some really nice dialogue there in that Lois and father scene. Thought it was great. Detective Comics 997 is out, moving right along into issue 1000. Building up. Peter Tomasi has come on. Peter Tomasi is no stranger to Batman. Artist Doug Mahnke is no stranger to Batman or stranger to superhero comics. They are both veterans of this industry. Therefore, it's no surprise that their run on Detective Comics is starting off very, very strong. In this issue, Batman teams up with one of his old mentors, the original Mr. Miracle, the one that taught Scott free, all that stuff. And I missed something. I thought he was dead. I thought he died like way back then. But I don't think I've ever seen or noticed the character in continuity since the early Jack Kirby Mr. Miracle days. So I'm probably missing a lot of stuff though. There's a lot of that stuff I didn't read, I guess. So if anybody knows, let me know in the comments down below. But this was a really fun, exciting issue. Not so much on the detective side of things this issue, but it doesn't always have to be about that. This is a real fun, nice, explosive Batman story. Really great mystery being set up though. Really big, epic action things. This book is pretty fun, very, very delightful, and I'm very, very happy for it. And I'm sold. I'm moving on to 1000. Peter Tomasi knows what he's doing. So does Doug Mahnke. Flash number 63 brings us the end of the Force Quest story, and it's a very satisfying conclusion. I actually like the way that this all wraps up. A little bit of explanation on the forces, more of a true explanation on the 4 new forces. There's the Still Force, the Sage Force, and the Strength Force, and of course the Speed Force, how they all relate to each other, how they all coexist with one another. A lot of explanations happening in here. Joshua Williamson has been doing a really good job on Flash. One of the things I've noticed is that it seems like if his stories were just a little bit more compressed at times, it would flow a little bit better, because even coming out twice a month at times feels like the stories just drag on a little bit too much, right? But this was a nice wrap-up to this Force Quest story. Really liked it, and it does set up an ending that ties right into Heroes in Crisis and this Flash Annual number 2, which is also written by Joshua Williamson. This issue is pretty decent. It's got artwork by Scott Collins. Godspeed returns. Bart Allen's in it. Not going to get too many explanations about it, but it's really cool to see him show up. This is his next appearance after the end of that other Flash Annual, whatever, wasn't it, when he showed up there? But technically pre-Young Justice, even though he was in Young Justice number 1. This leads right up into Bart going into Young Justice number 1. Still a lot of questions to be asked there, but this is basically about Barry Allen dealing with the supposed death of Warren Ellis, of Wally West from Sanctuary. That'd be terrible if Warren Ellis is one of the guys that got in Sanctuary. That'd be terrible. That being said, wouldn't Warren Ellis really just kill it on a Flash comic book? Just 6 issues, just fun sciencey stories. I'd buy it. I'd buy that, absolutely. Williamson, you want a break? Call in Warren Ellis. That would be really nifty. Anyway, this issue is all right. It's pretty cool. Feels like the emotional impact's not there because we knew this happened months ago. So it took a while for the Flash comics to get caught up, but it does set up a lot of interesting things that are going to be happening in Flash in 2019. So overall, I really like Williamson's vision of the Flash. I just feel like maybe his story should just be a little bit more compressed, a little bit more just pop in and go, right? Right? I don't know, something like that. The Terrifics number 12 is here with another terrific issue. This is a great issue. One of the best Fantastic Four books out on the shelves right now, but it's really cool and it absolutely starting to define its own identity 2 issues before Jeff Lemire is going to end the title. I don't know if he's going to end the title. They may continue it with another writer. Pretty certain that Jeff Lemire is leaving the book after issue 14, but I'm loving this book. It's really fun. At first, it gets a little clunky, just a constant shift and change in artists. Lately, they've kind of solidified that a little bit. Victor Bogdanovic is doing the art on this one. He's been doing work on Silencer. He did work on that new Superman book. I really like his style. Kind of a Capullo-esque, but definitely it's in its own vein, very stylized, very, very detailed, and very strong line work. But I'm liking it. Since I mentioned the art, might as well show a little bit of it. But I do like this book. This is a really cool issue that does have a nice, some nice character building for Plastic Man and some of the other characters. Great big moments, and like I said, it's like the best of the Fantastic Four in its own identity. Jeff Lemire's doing a great work with everything he's doing. The Terrifics is no exception. There's a new little Valentine's Day special, basically. It's Mysteries of Love in Space. So I didn't read all the way through this yet because this is 80 pages. It's $10, but I did read some real cool stories in here that I thought was really, really cool. First of all, there's a Bizarro story in here by Saladin Ahmed. I believe that may be his first DC published work, possibly, but it's a really cool, touching Bizarro story. There's a Kyle Higgins Kilowog story in there that's really nifty. But the lead story is this really awesome story by James Tynion about Darkseid and the Apocalypse and the New Gods and stuff like that, the Fourth World. Really interesting, twisted love story that was in there with Jesus Marino doing the art and Romulo Farrado Jr. on the coloring. So it's pretty fun. It's cool. Just like the previous one, the Nuclear Winter special, and I can't remember what was the one before that. Was that the Halloween special? I can't remember what they called it. But they've been kind of fun. It's $10 though, and it's a lot of story that ultimately doesn't really matter much. But the Darkseid story is worth mentioning. The Bizarro story is a treat and a delight. And the Kilowog story is pretty solid too. Some pretty decent work. There's also work in there from Jeff Loveness, Aaron Gillespie, Cecil Castellucci. And it's got a reprint of an old Gardner Fox Adam Strange story. So if you've never read any Adam Strange, there you go. From Vertigo Comics, we got Hex Wives, #4. And after 4 issues, the story's kind of, it's not necessarily slowing down, but it's starting to get a little clunky. I'm starting to, the clunkiness of the script is starting to come through a little bit more strongly as we're getting into the story. And the story and the character is still very intriguing, but it does feel like it gets mishandled at times, like just meaning the way it jumps from, I don't know, there's something about it that's just very uneven in the flow of this. Maybe it's the artwork. It's something I'm not necessarily picking up on exactly what it is, but I'm definitely feeling the impression inside that this book is just getting a little uneven, a little just unclear. Not unclear, just, I don't know, uninteresting. Something that's a little, it's just, my interest is waning in Hex Wives right now. I love the concept and I like the characters. But just the execution of it's getting a little uneven right now. Let's jump over to Marvel. Age of X-Men Alpha. So the Age of X-Men is kind of like the Age of Apocalypse that could, right? So remember Age of Apocalypse when reality was changed, and so they represented that by doing all the X-Men titles became all these other titles, right? So like Uncanny X-Men became the Astonishing X-Men for 4 issues, and Excalibur became Excalibur, and X-Factor became Factor X, right? You guys know what y'all know what I'm talking about. So this is kind of like the same thing, but without that big epic scope of having it be this big, actual, huge, like, line-wide changing event. The X-Men book's going to still go on, but basically the X-Men have been whisked away into this other reality created by X-Men or something where it's a perfect world and everybody on the world is a mutant, something like that, right? So it's like a House of M, Age of Apocalypse, alternate reality type thing, while the Marvel Universe continues on as it goes. So Maddie Rosenberg's going to be doing Uncanny X-Men. That starts like next week or the week after, something like that. And so that's going to be about the other X-Men that are not in this reality. This sets up the reality pretty interestingly. It's pretty cool. It's got nice clean artwork. It's written by Zach Thompson and Lonnie Nadler. And it's got artwork by Ramon Rosales and Triona Farrell on the coloring. The coloring's pretty spot on. I really do like some of the artwork's pretty solid in here. Some interesting ideas for the characters. It's kind of like the anti-Age of Apocalypse. It's like, what if they do get what they want? And that has its own problems too, and you start seeing some of it in here. So it's intriguing. It's intriguing, but it's about to break out into all these different 4-issue miniseries, so we'll see what happens next week when all those things start. Doctor Strange celebrates 400 issues this week. You know, I haven't been reading the Mark Waid, I almost said Chris Samney, that would be cool, but Jesus Sayas, yeah. I haven't been reading the Doctor Strange for a few issues. I thought it was really strong at first, but after the first initial story arc, in the middle, and then the second one, I started to feel, I don't know, it just wasn't doing it for me, right? So I stopped reading it. I'm like, okay, this is a 400 issue. I'll read it and see what's up, right? So I read it, and it's kind of like in the middle of a story that I'm kind of a little lost on, but it caught me up real quick. Writer Mark Waid does a great job of that. Jesus Sayas' artwork is still just elegant and beautiful. They have an interesting idea that the Ancient One is back and he's talking to Doctor Strange. There's some kind of mystery. And what was revealed in the story, I was actually, wow, that's kind of interesting and cool. So I think that this one issue, this 400th issue special, has pulled me back into Doctor Strange. And also, I kind of like the new costume, but it depends on the artist, because there's some backup stories in here that are pretty cool. But depending on the artist, the new costume doesn't look that cool. But on the right artist, it looks really cool. So really cool artwork throughout. There's also these backup stories that are really, really neat, including this really cool one involving Nightmare at the end with Daniel Acuna on the artwork. Mark Waid scripted. Really cool, nice celebration of Doctor Strange, and I really like this interesting, quirky concept about the magic accounting bureau, basically. Journey into Unknown Worlds is a one-shot that celebrates Timely and Atlas and Marvel's comics history publishing science fiction tales. You know, they released Cryptid, or the Crypt of Unknown, or whatever that one was last week, and the War of Tales, celebrating war comics and horror comics. This is celebrating the legacy of weird, crazy sci-fi comics, right? It's got a main story by Cullen Bunn that's actually pretty cool. I liked it a lot, thought it was pretty decent. And it's got a backup story by Clay McLeod Chapman. The artwork throughout is pretty solid and decent. Guillermo Sana and Francisco Mana. I like the coloring. I do like the stories. They're simple, they're fun, they're quirky and easy, and they're very comparable to stories from books like Journey into Unknown Worlds from back in the 50s and the Atlas Comics days. The pre-Marvel stuff. But it's still Marvel. It's still the same company. You know what I'm saying. Anyway, Journey into Unknown World is pretty fun, pretty interesting. X-Force #2 is here, and I thought it was a little bit of an improvement on the first issue. I thought it evened out a little bit. In the first issue, I thought that, is it Dylan Burnett? Yeah, Dylan Burnett, I thought his art style didn't really quite fit the gritty take on the characters by Ed Brisson. It's funny that I say the gritty take on the characters. This is X-Force. It's supposed to be this gritty team, right? But something about the artwork and the writing didn't really click and mesh with me in the first issue. That's starting to even out here. I'm starting to get into the story. I'm starting to get into it a little bit. I'm mostly reading this because of the cool, interesting Kid Cable. I think Kid Cable's kind of interesting. And I do like the X-Force team, and this is pretty cool, and it's nice throwback to the old school stuff. I'm not that attached to any of these characters aside from Deathlock, and I do like Cannonball. I do like Cannonball. But I'm very interested and intrigued with Kid Cable, and if you're interested and intrigued with Kid Cable or Deathlock or Cannonball or any others, I recommend this book. It's pretty fun. If you're an X-Force fan, you're probably going to like it. It's basically X-Force having to team up with Kid Cable, who came back from the future to kill Old Man Cable, right? Or to us, just normal Cable. So a lot of revelations are going to be made about that. The main story is pretty interesting. It's fun. It's a nice excuse to put X-Force into this anti-mutant nation to cause some havoc and commotion and things like that. But it does directly pick up on more threads from Extermination than just Kid Cable. So if you really liked a lot of the stuff that happened in Extermination, I would recommend reading X-Force. Also by Ed Brisson this week, is Dead Man Logan #3. This is a really fun issue. Basically, in this issue, Old Man Logan realizes his time is wrapping up. He's probably about to die, right? He's either about to die or his story's coming to an end. Definitely his time with the Marvel Universe is coming to an end, right? Because there's too many Wolverines out there, right? So this 12-issue series is going to be him like trying to wrap up all of his loose ends. The main one being that Mysterio is still alive, and in his universe, Mysterio made him think that he was being attacked by all these villains, and so he slaughtered them, and it turns out it was the X-Men. In this issue, Mysterio, who's been coerced by like Mr. Sinister and Sin, the Red Skull's daughter, and Crossbones, to kind of go ahead and put this plan into motion, starts doing that, but with the Avengers. So you get this big epic battle between Old Man Logan and the Avengers, and that's real fun. The artwork's very dynamic and captures that essence very finely. So I love this book. I think it's real fun. I think Brisson's been doing a great job with the character. This one's been cool. Since I mentioned the artwork, and it's mostly because it's just super dynamic, I do like the colors. It gets a little rough in some of its line work. It's not the cleanest images, but the energy is there. This battle feels ferocious, and I really thought they handled that very, very well. Amazing Spider-Man #14 is here, written by Nick Spencer, who's been doing a great job on this character, taking it back to some old school roots, blazing a very positive trail forward as well. This book's really fun. It's got some Lizard action, got some Kraven action, got some Rhino action, and you got some Chris Bachalo on the artwork, and the artwork is really, really cool and a big highlight of the issue. Really cool, intricate, detailed work. We're used to this stuff ever since the days of Generation X. The artwork is great. I really like the story. Peter is not the main focus, but it's more about what's going on around his life. Spencer's shifting things into motion. Big focus on Aunt May. That's really awesome, and I really like it. Some great work with the character of Aunt May. I'm loving what Spencer and company are doing on Amazing Spider-Man. I loved what Slott was doing before, but I'm loving what Spencer's doing probably even more. Harking back to the old stuff, but making it feel fresh and new. It's verbose, it's very wordy, but it still has a nice flow to it. Bachalo's artwork is a perfect complement to Spencer's script writing. Great stuff. Impressed. Love it. Captain America #7 is here, starting a new story. And at the end of the last issue, I said that I would probably skip it and just maybe trade weight it, but it just wasn't engaging me. Didn't feel like enough was happening per issue, right? But then they get me. I'm like, you know what? Whatever. Let me read it. I'll read it again, right? Because the artwork was pretty decent. The artwork is Adam Kubert, and I didn't realize that he was coming on to do some Captain America work. So I wanted to see it, and it's pretty decent stuff. Pretty decent stuff. I do like his artwork. I do like the coloring on here. That's Frank Martin. Frank Martin's coloring works with Kubert's pencils really, really well. But the story just feels kind of like old hat. Feels like a Captain America story. He's framed for murder. You know, so now he has to turn himself in and give up being Captain America. We've gotten this story before many times and done more excitingly. The story's not exciting. It's not fun. It's dull. And it relies too much still on a post-Secret Empire view of Cap, which Secret Empire happened so long ago in the comic book world for us because so many comic books have been produced and consumed since then that it still seems a little... I get what Ta-Nehisi Coates is trying to do with some of the themes and how it's maybe like resonating and like a metaphor for like some current ideas about American socio-political things and stuff like that. I get that, and it's there. But the story's not exciting. The story doesn't do anything for me. And the story feels like something we've seen before, but done a lot more thrilling. So if this could just be a more dynamic book with a little bit more meat to it per issue, I think it could be really, really good. Marvel Knights #6 is here. It's the final issue of the 6-issue celebration of Marvel Knights. The imprint that changed the comic book industry back in 1998. This is the wrap-up, and it's all right. It's cool. This was a nice celebration. It was nice seeing some creators come on to tackle some of these books. Like, I was really, really excited, for instance, to read the Black Panther issue by Vita Ayala. I thought they did a great job on that one. But Marvel Knights #6, it's a decent wrap-up. It's cool. It's all right. It makes sense. It's a nice celebration. But ultimately, at the end of it, I just felt like, ultimately. West Coast Avengers #7 is out this week. This book is fantastic. True sequel to Kelly Thompson's Hawkeye run. I almost said Hawkman. But that'd be cool if Kelly did Hawkman. I'd rather her do Hawkwoman. How about Hawkman and Hawkwoman? How about Hawkwoman and Hawkman? Team up book. Anyway, West Coast Avengers is really fun. If you like the Kate Bishop Hawkeye series that Kelly Thompson did from a few years ago, it was one of my top books of 2017. You gotta read West Coast Avengers. This is its successor. Really fun. Kate's got her own Avengers team over on the West Coast. It's a team of misfits. You got Quentin Quire, you got Gwenpool, who I am now a huge fan of because of this. Kelly Thompson takes characters that I typically not really that big of a fan of, like Rogue and Gambit and Gwenpool, and then I just love them. Like, Gwenpool is the most awesome character in the pages of West Coast Avengers. I love Quentin, and Novar, the Grant Morrison created Marvel boy, comes back. This is Kate's ex-boyfriend, so of course her new boyfriend Fuse has some views on that, right? Really interesting stuff, and of course Clint Barton, Hawkeye fans, he's in there as well. Great stuff, great fun dialogue, a great pace to it, a great energy and vibe throughout the book. Really highly complimented with the Danielle D. Nicolo. I butchered that. The artwork in this book is amazing. Really cool stuff. Triona Farrell on the coloring. A great coloring job by Farrell. Great stuff all the way through. High energy, really fun, buoyant. This book is great and very charming. So there you go. Speaking of charming books, The Unstoppable Wasp. #4 is here with one of the darker takes on Nadia Pym. One of my favorite things about The Unstoppable Wasp and the initial series and this current series with great artwork by Guri Hiri, but great writing by Jeremy Whitley, is what he's doing is he's taking Nadia, who's this very bombastic and positive and vibrant character, and starts kind of taking a little bit of a, not super dark, like not in a way that's like, oh, she's picking up guns and blasting people away, but taking a new aspect of her personality and bringing it to light and showing a little bit more of her manic side, a little bit more of the things that she's actually maybe inherited from her father, Hank Pym. A great issue, great artwork, great continuation of the ongoing saga of The Unstoppable Wasp. The final issue of the Exiles is out this week. Exiles number 12, written by Saladin Ahmed. I've loved this book all the way through. I thought it was very fun, very charming, and it was always highlighted by exceptional artwork, and this is no exception. This is fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. Seriously, I'm trying to find the credits. It's Javier Rodriguez. No, yeah, Javier Rodriguez, Alvaro Lopez, Munsta Vicinta. Fantastic artwork, very vibrant, very colorful, and very cool layouts and design work. I'm going to show you a couple pages right there. Look at that stuff. You're getting this throughout. It's also just a nice wrap up to the story of Blink and this new team of Exiles, and it sets up the team's existence in the Marvel Universe for the future, so they can go back to them again. But these 12 issues have been fun. They've been a nice delight. I love this cartoon, Wolverine. I love the Cowboy, Black Panther. I love Valkyrie. I love Peggy Carter as Captain America, and her own version of Bucky, I think, is Becky, right? Love it. Love the artwork. Love the experimentation and the approach to the story and the approach to the design, the layout, and the composition of the page. The art on this book has been tip-top from issue 1 all the way through issue 12, and it has been one of my treats to read for the last year. Let's move over to some independent comics and other smaller publishers. Dark Horse has Wyrd number 1, or is it Wyrd number 1? Or as somebody at the shop suggested today, Wyrd number 1. I'm more leaning towards Wyrd, because that was my initial guttural reaction was, oh, Wyrd. But then I was like, that could be weird. And then other people were like, it could be Wyrd. But whatever it is, it's pretty good. It's really good, actually. I thought it was pretty good. Kurt Pyers is the writer. Antonio Fuso's artwork is great. Stefano Simoni on the coloring is fantastic. So the execution of the book, the layouts, the pacing of the book, everything is really pitch perfect. The only thing about it is that the character's just your typical Constantinian anti-hero type thing, right? Just hard drinking. It's like a Warren Ellis character created especially in the 90s, where they weren't quite so refined, right? So it's just that kind of like a-hole bastard, heavy drinker, I know it all, I'm the winner, House, Sherlock Holmes type thing, right? But like really like on the lower end of that, right? Something like that, right? So it's that kind of a thing, but it works so well. Like, as cliche as that character is, as cliche as the idea that, well, we have to go to this guy who's just drinks and can do whatever he wants because he's that good at his job, but it does it really well. The execution is really good. Like, the layouts, the pencils, the artwork, the coloring, everything about it was just really top-notch, including that Jeff Lemire cover. So I would recommend this as one of your possible sleeper hits of the week. Peter Cannon Thunderbolt number 1 was starting to gain some traction, I noticed. This one's written by Kieran Gillen, and it's got artwork by... Where are the credits? I think they're at the end. Let me look this up. The artwork is by someone whose name I do not remember right now, and there's a bunch of ads at the back, and I cannot figure... Where are the credits? It's Wingard or something like that, right? Anyway, this book is kind of interesting. Peter Cannon is the character that the character of Ozymandias is based on, the character from The Watchmen. So that's kind of interesting, but instead of just doing like a typical pulpy take on the character, which has been done to death, Gillen and company go right along with the idea of the Watchmen comparison. They just jump head first into it, and you read it and you're like, oh, this book is all right, but it feels like it may be forgettable, something we can just let go of. But then when you get to the end of it, you're like, that was rather fun and kind of cool. And very, very interesting. So I don't want to spoil the end for you, but that's a kind of cool take on doing Thunderbolt, I think. Ice Cream Man returns with a third arc. This is issue number 9. It starts the brand new arc. This issue, of course, Ice Cream Man are these little horror stories. They're all like one and done, but there's this overall like something happening, right? And this is the mythology world building issue right here. All your questions about these two characters, the Ice Cream Man and this dude that dresses in black, the Man in Black cowboy dude, all your questions about him, where they come from, what they're actually up to, all answered here. Still surreal, still about hope, despair, and suffering and redemption. Crazy, right? I love the dichotomies that are explored and elevated in this book. It's just such an amazing piece of work. W. Maxwell Prince has just nailed every single issue script-wise. Martin Morazzo and Chris O'Halloran on the artwork. It's just beautiful. It's brilliant. It's great. And so much gets explained in here. All the spider stuff, a little bit of the music stuff. Really interesting. Can't show you too many pages for you because it's very, very spoilery, but it made a already great book way more interesting. Ice Cream Man number 9 is out this week. Man-Eaters number 5 is out this week. Continuing this really charming, quirky, fun poke at our obsession with our disobsession, I should say, with like periods and women's health issues and stuff like that, right? So it has a lot to say about equality and equity and just decency and stuff like that, and just the way that the system is kind of set up. And it is really satirical, and it's very fun, it's very quirky, and it's very experimental with the way it's telling its story. Chelsea Kane and company are doing such a fantastic job on this book. I love it. Its basic story is it's a world where once women start having periods, they have the potential to turn into a giant werecat and kill people, right? And it's about the paranoia of the female body, the paranoia of a woman's period, and talking about it, and education about it, and stuff like that. And about the difference that boys in school are treated towards girls in school and things like that. Really interesting concepts. Really like it. Kate Nimzik is the artist. Great stuff. Man-Eaters has been so much fun, so funny, and just really, really just charming. Fantastic stuff. So there are a couple Star Trek books, and I'm a big Trekker, so let's talk about them. Star Trek The Q Conflict number 1 is out. What this story promises to do, and what it does do, is it uses the Q, right, to bring in all of the Star Trek series, minus Enterprise and Discovery. Maybe Discovery's too new. Maybe they know that Enterprise? Anyway, Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, and TOS all represented here in the Q conflict. It's fun. The writing is okay. It's a little silly. It's a little just thrown together. It's a little like whatever. But as a Trek fan, I loved it. And as a Trek fan, if you're a Trek fan, you're going to love it. If you're not a Trek fan, if you're a very discerning reader who only likes stuff like The Watchmen and V for Vendetta and stuff like that, you're going to really hate this because it's not that good at all. But it's really fun for a Trek fan because it's cool to see Kirk, Janeway, Sisko, Spock, Picard, Riker, and all the rest, and Q. That's super fun. But another Star Trek book that came out was Star Trek The Next Generation, the IDW 2020 special. The 2020 specials have been projecting 20 years into the future on properties or 20 years into the past of properties, right? This one goes into the past, 20 years before Next Generation, 20 years before. This is Captain Picard, when he first became the captain of the Stargazer. It also represents and shows his first meeting with Beverly Crusher. So really cool stuff, informative for Trek fans. Trek fans, you're going to like it. The artwork is done by Woodward. What's his name? J.K. Woodward, which a lot of people like because he does get likenesses correct and things like that. But it does have, it just seems a little static for me and things like that. But the story, the script on this was actually really good. The voices of the characters are nailed. It fits and takes place in the mythology. Really fun stuff. As a Trek fan, I rather enjoyed both of these. This one way more, but this one was all right. Skyward is back this week. Number 10 is the final issue of the second story arc. And it really does a great job of kind of resetting the story, redefining itself, and setting up what's going to come in issue 3, or in arc 3, to make the story continue to be interesting. Because arc 1, incredibly interesting, but halfway through arc 2, I was like, it's starting to lose me a little bit. It feels like it's starting to lose momentum. In this issue especially, they really regained that momentum. They redefine and shake up the series and point it up, not in a new direction, but now in a more clear direction. Really excited for the future of this book. Skyward's been great. It's a story about a world where gravity stops working. And just the world building and the ideas that come around that, like giant fireflies and dragonflies. Some fun, wild, cool stuff in this issue and in this series in general. Skyward, pretty good, pretty good. And I'm going to spotlight a couple books I didn't read. Kino number 13, I haven't read this yet though, because I got all the previous issues of Kino and I'm about to get caught up and read it. Hearing really good things about this, and I want to point this out because Vault Comics doing that book Friendo. I just did an advanced review of issue number 4, which comes out in a few weeks. Alex Packnadel, the writer and creator of Friendo, is the writer of Kino now and has been since like issue 10 or something like that. So I'm going to get caught up on this book and check it out. Those Fraser Irving covers are amazing, and I've heard nothing but good stuff about this book, so I'm definitely going to check it out. Vault Comics finally releases Vagrant Queen, the final issue, issue number 6. This book by Magdalene Visaggio. It's like a space opera. She's doing a great job with the script, with the story, but I haven't read the last couple issues because it kind of fell behind on the schedule. It was kind of coming out infrequently, or maybe I just forgot to read an issue or something, so I'm definitely not going to read issue 6 yet, but I'm going to sit down very soon to read them all. But I wanted to point out that that was out. Also from Vault Comics, the Submerged trade paperback and the Deep Roots trade paperbacks are out. Deep Roots and Submerged are two of my absolute favorite comic books that came out in the last year. Vault Comics is just tearing it up, absolutely. And finally, let's talk about Black Hammer, The Quantum Age, the final issue of The Quantum Age, issue number 6. A pretty good, decent wrap-up to the series. Not the wrap-up I was expecting, kind of a brief, quick wrap-up, but I did enjoy it. I enjoy the character, and it's kind of like the future, the far-off future of the Black Hammer universe, but it does have some nice little like foreshadowing, or should I say pre-shadowing, get it, because it's set in the future, of some Black Hammer stuff. So that's interesting. That was really cool to see. Absolutely. Black Hammer by Jeff Lemire has been such a great comic book, and this whole world that he's spinning out of it, including these miniseries like Dr. Starr, Sherlock Frankenstein, and now Quantum Age. They've just been killing it. Fantastic stuff. So that's what I read this week. What did you read? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. My pick of the week was Justice League Annual, but there's some great books out. Ice Cream Man number 9 was on that list. There was some real fun stuff out this week. What else was that? I'm like flipping through. What else? Superman, that Action Comics was really good. What did you read? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for your patience in this video and the delay this week. I really do appreciate it. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups. Join us at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts and a whole lot more. And don't forget, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading.